Hello everyone and welcome back to Scandinavian Design 101. I'm Sanna.
I'm Andreas and we're two Swedes and we love design. And this week we will continue talking about the Danish architect Børge Mogensen. And if you haven't watched last week's video already, we recommend that you do that first. And this video will start in the 1940s and deal with the later half of Mogensen's life and career. As we mentioned in the last video, Mogensen attended the annual Copenhagen Cabinet Makers Guild's exhibitions for 26 years. At these exhibitions, he could produce furniture of higher quality than the ones he designed for serial production. Price wasn't really an issue here, and the audience was the upper middle class, not the broad masses. In 1944, he exhibited an interior called A Bachelor's Living Room, and the best piece of furniture featured was an exclusive smoke cabinet called the Chinese cabinet, with flexible shelves and stands for pipes and cigars. It was made from mahogany and brass, exclusive materials not generally associated with Mogensen, who at the time was designing functional furniture for FDB.
The next year, Mogensen displayed a legendary piece of furniture at the exhibition, the spokeback sofa. It was multifunctional and big enough to sleep in when flipping down the sides. Fritz Hansen started producing it, but at the time it was a commercial failure, and only a few of them were made before production was discontinued. In the early 60s, it was yet again put into production by Fritz Hansen, and this time the audience was ready to appreciate the innovative design. Ever since then, it has been a well-recognized bestseller.
Yeah. And in 1949, Mogensen came to design one of his first chairs with a daring aesthetic, the so-called shell chair. It's sculptural with a back made from molded plywood. And made from cherry by the cabinet maker Erhard Rasmussen, it was a way to prove that plywood was an appropriate material also for more exclusive furniture. At the time, Verner was also experimenting with a similar design, the shell chair FH 1936. But neither Mogensen nor Verner got hooked on plywood and would after that focus on solid wood.
The theme of the 1950s Cabinet Makers exhibition was hunting cabin, and Mogensen designed one of his most iconic pieces ever, the hunting chair. This exclusive and avant-garde looking chair got much attention in the press and is today one of the most famous Danish easy chairs. This was the first sling chair by Mogensen upholstered in core leather, but more of these would follow. They were originally produced by the cabinet maker Erhard Rasmussen, but nowadays the producer is Fredericia Furniture.
The 1950s was a good time in Denmark with economic growth and rising demand for high-quality furniture. Børge started his own atelier and also collaboration with the furniture manufacturer Søborg Möbler. At the time, Søborg was experimenting with industrial serial production, and this interested Mogensen, who soon designed a range of modular storage furniture called SM50. The following years, Mogensen came to design a long range of furniture for the factory, among them the minimalistic shell chair, often simply called the Søborg chair.
The Mogensen atelier flourished and Børge designed furniture for a long range of companies. Perhaps that's why he was far from thrilled when he, in 1955, was approached by Andreas Graversen, an old colleague from FDB. Graversen had been offered to buy a small cabinet maker factory near the town of Fredericia, and he wanted Børge to come on board with him on the project. After a lot of persuasion, Børge finally said yes, and the two started planning for a new company called Fredericia Stolefabrik. The goal was to create durable and democratic furniture for a fair price. The same as before.
Yeah.
The collaboration was soon a huge success and would come to last for the rest of his life. Now let's take a look at some of the furniture Mogensen designed for Fredericia. must also mention Mogensen's Öresund series launched in 1955 by the Swedish company Carl Andersson och Söner. The range consisted of shelves, chairs and tables and resembled the furniture previously designed for Søborg in Denmark. At first, the sales were far from great, but in the 60s the series became a huge success when the factory switched from pine and teak to Japanese oak. Soon, Öresund could be found in public spaces all over Denmark and Sweden.
Yeah. And it's impossible to talk about Mogensen without mentioning the many conflicts the stubborn architect was involved in. And he was highly critical of most of the Danish furniture architects and was annoyed by their experimentation with new shapes and materials. Functionalism, according to him, was lost among organic shapes and exclusive materials. In 1962, Mogensen and the colleague Arne Carlsson wrote a long article in the magazine Arkitekten with a telling headline, "Applied Arts Gone Astray." They criticized the whole Danish design scene in general, but also specific architects. And according to them, artistic ambitions had no place at all in Danish design. When concentrating on the aesthetic, the result was most often useless objects. The industry tended to concentrate on making eye-catching furniture rather than functional and democratic objects. The article started with the following Paul Henningsen quote. "Dear friends in the arts and crafts, how can you expect us to go on respecting you as long as you continue to fraud in the name of art? Meanwhile, all the modern tasks remain unsolved. We have no proper drinking glasses, plates, water sets, not a spoon, knife or fork, while wealthier homes are flooded with trash and rubbish at fantastical prices." And some of the colleagues attacked in the article were Jens Quistgaard, who made useless things, Finn Juhl, who lacked personality and sense of design, and not least Werner Panton, who designed utter nonsense. And the article resulted in an infected debate, of course. Finn Juhl was highly offended and replied by asking Mogensen why furniture had to be dull and depressing. That's a good question, I think.
That is a very good question.
After this, Juhl and Mogensen never spoke to each other again.
Well.
Yeah.
Lika bra, tänkte jag.
Ja, det är ju så.
Well, enough with the conflicts now. In the late 50s, Mogensen built a house for his family in Gentofte in the outskirts of Copenhagen. He and Alice would come to live there for the rest of their lives. In the studio located in the basement, Mogensen designed several iconic pieces of furniture. Best known is probably the Spanish chair. When traveling in Andalusia in the summer of 1958, Mogensen saw an antique Spanish chair with broad armrests and leather upholstery. Inspired by this, he designed the so-called Spanish chair later the same year. Prototypes made from pinewood was produced by the cabinet maker Erhard Rasmussen, and they were shown to the public for the first time at the Cabinet Makers exhibition that year. Serial production was started next year by Fredericia, and it soon became a commercial success, sold in large numbers.
Yeah. Another piece of furniture highly associated with Mogensen is the Embassy sofa launched in 1962 by Fredericia. And its name was actually 2213, but it was nicknamed Embassy because it was used at Danish embassies all over the world. When creating it, Mogensen had decided to create the best sofa ever, and he was highly inspired by a sofa designed by Kåre Klint already in 1929 for the Barcelona World's Fair. 2213 was indeed a modernized version of the sofa by Klint, with a lower backrest and a simplified frame. According to Mogensen, A sofa had to be wide enough to sleep in, and because of this, 2213 is 222 centimeters wide.
That's nice.
Yeah. Exclusive materials and high quality made the sofa very expensive, and this was, well, a problem for Mogensen, who recently had accused his colleagues of producing furniture for the upper class.
Yeah.
And this was a sofa for the upper class.
Embassies.
Yeah.
Very upper class.
Yeah.
Late in his career, Mogensen returned to simpler, more democratic furniture. He designed a range of furniture adapted for institutions and hospitals, and also a range of different garden furniture for several different manufacturers. When in his 50s, Mogensen bought a summer house for him and Alice in his hometown of Ålborg, and he started planning for his retirement. With a fellow architect, he designed a modernist extension of the house, and much of his time was spent building this. When the construction was finished in 1969, Mogensen felt sick and went to the doctor. Sadly, he was diagnosed with the inoperable brain cancer, and he passed away in October of 1972 at the young age of 58, and I don't want to think about that.
No.
No.
And this was our second video about the Danish architect Børge Mogensen.
The people's designer.
The people's designer, the dull and boring designer, according to Finn Juhl. Yeah.
And me.
Yeah. And if you found this video all but dull and boring,
hopefully, please click like and
subscribe.
And subscribe.
And follow us on Instagram. We are called Scandinavian Design 101.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you.